Welcome back to Campus Outcomes, where higher ed leaders share real stories on the work of driving enrollment, engagement, and student success. I'm your host, Terry Markle, and today I'm sitting down with Monica Cutler, Director of Digital Marketing and Strategy for CU Denver Advancement. Monica works at the intersection of storytelling, data, and philanthropy, and she has some creative approaches to connecting all three that I think you're going to find genuinely useful. Monica, welcome. So glad you're here.
Thank you. Very happy to be here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Before we get into our conversation, I'd love to know a little about you. How did you land in higher ed advancement and specifically in your current digital marketing and strategy space?
Well, like most people who land in higher ed and especially in advancement, it was by accident. I had started, through my undergrad, I worked in retail, and then I moved into Denver to start a master's degree. And during that time, I was like, I got to get out of retail, and the best thing I could land was a student hourly job at CU Anschutz in the Alumni Relations office. I hustled a little bit there, and then eventually a position opened up at the Denver campus in the Alumni Relations office there. And that happened to coincide with a system-wide change in the email communication tools, and being young and nimble and not afraid of technology, I leaned into that and found myself really involved in some of the scoping of those projects and whatnot. And then, because higher ed is full of change, Alumni Relations moved under advancement, which then provided me the opportunity to really expand my role even more. So instead of just doing kind of administrative alumni relations work, I then started supporting the whole Office of Advancement. So this expanded my role from alumni communications to also donor communications, some solicitations, and then really adding that extra layer of telling the story and articulating the impact of philanthropy to our audiences, as well as also engaging alumni in various areas. So now my role includes, I manage the alumni and advancement websites, I manage the alumni social media accounts, I manage event registration forms in our office, and I build them. My events team takes care of managing the event. And then my bread and butter is around mass email communications.
That's fantastic. It sounds like you found a wonderful home at CU Denver. And CU Denver is a really interesting institution. 13,000 students, I believe, and nearly half are first generation. So when you think about that, how does that student profile shape the way you think about your work and advancement?
Yeah, the students at CU Denver is honestly why I'm at CU Denver and why I'm still here. I'm a first generation student myself, so really identify with that identity. We have a really diverse student body, and coming from a small town in Idaho, that was really eye-opening and exciting for me to have exposure to new perspectives and different people and populations and cultures. And I really love this CU Denver population because students are really here with an intention, right? They're not here just because mom and dad said to go to college and we're paying for everything. They're here because they want to be here. They're striving for success, and they really are working to change the legacy of their families and the trajectory of their own outcomes by being here and participating and being really intentional about it. So even I have a little bucket in my email of feel goods, right? Of whenever I'm getting really frustrated with my job or people that I'm working with and kind of losing sight as to the bigger role that I play, I will revisit that bucket, and they're often student stories or messages from family members about how finishing a degree or getting a scholarship really changed their family, and just the pride that is palpable from these people and these families really helps kind of shift my perspective and remember that I am a part of playing a bigger role in some of these people, literally changing the legacy of their families. And so while I'm pretty distant from somebody crossing the stage or choosing to enroll, I am playing a bit of a part as I'm telling some of those stories and helping inspire some philanthropy. So
Wow. Well, I love that. It really sounds like you have a personal connection, which I imagine helps really connect you to the work that you're doing. And when we met, I love this concept that you shared with me. You use the term "powered by philanthropy," and can you share with us what that means in practice at CU Denver?
Yeah, we have a lot of exciting opportunities that exist at CU Denver that are entirely related to philanthropy and wouldn't exist without it. We are a public institution. We rely heavily on student tuition to just keep the lights on and to operate. And so any of the extras that happen at our campus are often rooted in philanthropy. So a couple of areas that I think about is we just launched this year an affordable housing certificate. Extremely salient topic across the country, definitely huge here in Denver. And not only is this affording opportunities for existing students to tack this certificate onto their degrees in architecture, school public affairs, and even liberal arts and sciences, it is also an opportunity for practitioners to re-engage, come back if they're alumni, and come and get these certificates and level up their skill set so that they can contribute more to the community at large and improve their public servant skills and learn what's, especially when you've been out of school for so long, it's really helpful to kind of come back and reorient in specific areas that really help you advance in your degree. Another area that is, and again, that affordable housing certificate would not exist if it wasn't for a philanthropic investment. Another area is our Center for Psychedelic Research that was also recently launched. So this is opening doors for research and allowing students to work with faculty to do research. So having that applicable, hands-on, practical learning, it again provides the opportunity for current degree seeking students as well as external practitioners to come back, get an accredited certificate in administrating like therapeutic psilocybin within a clinical setting. And so it's really helping, and it's kind of cutting edge, honestly, right? Some of this is because Denver has passed and Colorado has passed some laws to legalize some of the psilocybin stuff. But in conjunction with that, right, we've had philanthropic investment to create this center to really allow certain faculty to like do some research, bring students alongside of that, bring in community members to get that certification. And what we've seen is that since we've launched this psychedelic research center, we have more people piquing up interests and are like, okay, but what about these other kind of psychoactive drugs? Can we start digging into those as well? And what kind of potential benefits live there? And so we've seen that come through fruition through a philanthropic investment, and that has since inspired even more philanthropy to come into that space to expand that. So again, these are opportunities, and I think about scholarships too. These are all things that exist that are incredible opportunities that can really help somebody in the employment field, and they are literally powered by philanthropy. They would not be there if it wasn't for a philanthropic investment.
Wow, those are really compelling examples and kind of wide ranging, going from affordable housing to psychedelic research. And I can appreciate the challenge that deciding what programs are the right fit for that philanthropic investment and to really be able to use it as a platform to amplify the work that you're doing. So, how do you decide which of those opportunities are the right fit?
Well, I'm lucky in that I don't have to decide. It is often our fundraisers, but more often than not, the place of investment is really driven by the donor. Donors will see challenges within our society like affordable housing and knowing that it's an issue that really needs to address, and then they find a partner in CU Denver knowing that we're well positioned to help address it. We are in the city, we have existing partnerships with public servants, we are training future public servants, and how can we start folding this into our existing infrastructure? And so often I feel like our philanthropy is coming from, it is predominantly donor driven, But more often than not, we have donors coming to us wanting to invest in things that do inherently level and ladder up to university priorities, and those are all tied to bettering and serving our community.
Yeah, I love that connection to the community. I would imagine that that's an important factor when you're developing the programs and really making that decision of which ones will resonate with your donor community. So now I'd love to get some practical tips and advice from you. I know a lot of people in your position are wrestling with the same exact problems. You have donation platforms and other systems that don't always communicate with each other. You're running email campaigns, social events, and trying to figure out what's actually working. So walk me through how you've approached that.
Yes, integration, always a challenge in higher education, right? We get these great tools and then we struggle for the additional investment and skill sets or even capacity of people to create these integrations that are more than just one direction but actually bilateral. So it does require a creative approach in a way. So like I said, one of my bread and butter areas is email strategy. And so one example that I have kind of like tied to how we've taken a creative approach to this was around event marketing for alumni. So we internally were like, oh, it makes sense that if we have multiple events that are kind of occurring within the same season, that we would combine those into one email. And that would reduce the number of emails and then give people a lot of different options in how they could engage and then deliver. So we did a year of that where it was like, see you at winter events, see you at summer events. And we just noticed that we were really struggling to get that conversion, those people actually signing up for things. And things that we normally could send one email and it was sold out, we were having to send 2, 3, 4 emails at a time, and we were just like a little bit confused on that. So we stepped back and took a different approach the following year, where we actually then just created like single subject. So instead of summer events, we actually had Rockies and a block party. Like they were separate events instead of combining them. And that changed the subject line. It made the emails basically single subject with one CTA of a sign up for this or don't. And immediately, my events team, and my alumni relations or alumni engagement area all saw an immediate difference and just the engagement piece of things. And so it makes us like think about the fact that on average, a normal person receives about 70 emails a day, and they're spending about 1 to 5 seconds per email. So when you think about having like a list in either like a newsletter or even combining events into things, that's a lot of information to try to get through within 5 seconds, let alone having to penetrate through 70 other emails that happen to hit that day as well. And so what we've learned is that doing single subject has reduced the cognitive load. So somebody can look at a subject line and know immediately that it's about See Unite at the Rockies and know whether or not they're interested in exploring that or participating, versus like having to go through a list and use cognitive load to figure out like, is this something relevant to me? Is it interesting to me? Can I make it? Do I want to buy tickets? Right? Those are a lot of choices to have to make. And when we just make it very clear up front with a subject line and a single subject, it's a lot easier for somebody to choose to participate in that. So the challenge is that while before we were sending less emails because they were grouped, we ended up having to do more. And now I have more single subject emails that I have to send. So it's a bit of a Tetris game on the calendar to figure out the right spacing, where your overlapped audience is, when things need to be marketed, when they're occurring at the same time. So it does add a little bit more challenge on the calendar side of things, but that's my job. That's the cognitive load like I'm taking on to make it really easy for somebody to look at their email in a mess of things and go yes, no, open, and then click and decide to engage with something. And so as soon as we made that shift back to single subject, immediately all of us noticed a difference in that conversion happening a lot better and that engagement. Which then means like we're only sending like 2 emails per event that's happening versus like maybe having to send 4 emails of the grouped stuff together. So it's changing the way we think about combining content into a single email, right? Internally, that makes a lot of sense, but like on the user end of things, it's just not practical, and you're like almost competing against yourself in a way.
Yeah, I can imagine that uh, tracking that human behavior piece can be really challenging at times. And I love your way of sharing reducing the cognitive load for that user. So in plain terms, for someone like me, it means simplifying things so that I actually can and want to take action rather than getting frustrated or just not paying attention at all to the content in the email. So I think that'll be something that really resonates with others, your approach to that reducing the cognitive load. So let's switch gears for a minute to a big picture question that I think is really timely. So when you think about enrollment being very competitive right now, and on top of it, we have tight budgets, and many campus partners that you work with are operating in scarcity environments. So you talked about the idea that advancement can actually help with retention. So by wrapping support around students to help them cross the finish line. So what does that look like for you, and how does that fit into your current fundraising campaign?
Yes, it seems weird to think that advancement would have a role in retention. We are not related to admissions, we're not really related to recruitment and that kind of thing. But everything, especially at a campus or an institution like CU Denver, where 80% of our budget is coming from student tuition, getting students in the door, getting them to stay, getting them to finish is critical for our budgets. And so a lot of our philanthropic focuses and priorities are related to that. So as you mentioned, CU Denver just this year launched its first ever comprehensive campus fundraising campaign. And we have 3 different areas that all kind of inherently support retention and recruitment pieces of things. So our first priority in the campaign is around expanding access. So this is related to scholarships, right? The more scholarships we've got, the easier it is to recruit those students. I think about the PhD level students, like it's really hard because Denver is a high expense city. And so we'll get students who are high caliber and they want to come here and do our programs, but they can't afford to live here and study. So creating scholarships and getting philanthropic investment that can actually provide like living stipend is huge, and actually getting somebody through the doors. And because we have plenty that want to be here, but there is the added piece is that we are in the heart in the city of Denver, and that does cost a little extra money. But as you noted, we have a really high diversity in our population, and then as well as first generation. And so often these first generation students are reliant on Pell Grants and scholarships to even be able to get in through the door. So this is like critical for that recruitment piece of things. And it's probably like the number one thing that our donors are investing in is student scholarships. It is a backbone to CU Denver for sure. So our second campaign priority is around student success, and this is related to those wraparound services that you were talking about, right? This can be anything from like we'll have, right, we know how critical internships are for students to participate in and how much that helps them when they move into the employment field and graduate because they've got these networks, they have these applicable experiences. But often when we think about our population at CU Denver, these students are working full-time while they go to school. And so adding an internship onto there is critical, and they can't drop to part-time because they need that income to take care of their families, because often we have non-traditional students who have families. And so something like a donor investing in creating a paid internship opportunity. So they're supplementing maybe in a smaller organization that doesn't have a paid internship to allow that student to take some pay and be able to participate in that opportunity. Thinking about like study abroad, right? being able to have philanthropic dollars support study abroad opportunities, so students who are first gen who maybe have never even left Denver could potentially go to Beijing and have an incredible experience there, right? We also, this would fold into like academic advising and mentorship programs, like all those kind of those services that go beyond just the classroom material that really help somebody feel at home, feel like they belong, and really have success and creating those relationships that help make them want to stay and help them finish. So again, that's really critical for us for the retention piece of things. And then the third campaign priority that we have is around human talent. So this goes to, right, all of our staffing and faculty as well, right? Thinking about, we talked about the Psychedelic Research Center, right? Mm-hmm. If we have donors that are investing in human talent, which involves opportunities for research, and students are able to come alongside those faculty members to do research, potentially maybe get paid for it, or at least the research is funded, or initiate their own research, we could have students like graduating who have publications, and also allows us to be able to recruit high caliber faculty and instructors to various programs, and increase the staff that we've got as well. So then again, it makes supporting and creating and offering these other student services, these wraparound services, even easier to deliver those effectively when we've got a greater expansion of staff. And so again, that helps with the retention piece. You get high caliber faculty here. That helps with the recruitment piece, right? When we've got students that are really interested in very specific areas or points of research and study. So yeah, our campaign definitely ladders up to these institutional priorities in terms of getting more students here. And really, I mean, it comes down to like helping these students achieve their dreams and what they're intending to do with their lives, which then really changes the trajectory of their families, literally.
Yeah, it really is life-changing work, and it's very compelling how you've combined those wraparound services, including experiential learning and internship opportunities, to really focus on what means to us is retention for the student, but what means to them is a successful outcome. And it's been a pleasure to have you, Monica. I've really enjoyed our conversation. The thing I keep coming back to is how intentional you are about making sure the right message reaches the right person, whether that's a prospective donor, an alumnus, or a student. And the last question that I have for you is, for someone who's trying to be more data informed in their communications and doesn't really know where to start, what's the first thing you would tell them to do?
A couple of things here. One, I think it's really important to always think about your audience first. That's the baseline, that's where you start. And often I feel like when we are in higher education doing more than one FTE at a time, our work becomes reactionary. Somebody asks to do this, you just execute on it. But I really encourage people to take a moment of pause and really be inquisitive and inquire about, like, who is this intended for? What is this message meant to really convey? What is the measurement of success of this message? Is it just to deliver it, or are we asking for an action on that? Is there a way that we need to segment this better so that we can make it a little more personalized? But really stepping into the space of the recipient and the user, right, goes back to that cognitive load of how do we make it really easy for them to get our message? And is that message strategic, or are we just ticking an internal box of like, well, we should be doing this? So prioritizing and thinking about the audience is huge. And then the second piece I would say is benchmarking. The best thing you can do for yourself, yes, this is it has to be creative because you're looking at, different databases that aren't maybe talking and that kind of thing. And so to just like take a year, your first year, where you just start baseline measuring stuff. This is just what happened. This was our conversion rate. This is how many people we had signed up. And then start creating longitudinal trackers over time. This will help you start to see different trends, different points in time where like maybe a message being sent this week versus that week is more effective. Are we not getting engagement to events until we're 4 weeks out? Okay, can we relieve pressure to not get stuff 8 weeks out then if we're not getting engagement until we're much closer to the event? Maybe that depends on the audience. But I would say start putting stuff into spreadsheets to just create that baseline for yourself, and then start adding to that year over year to create these longitudinal trackers, and then also recording how you're pulling and looking at this data so that you can get as close to apples as possible. And we know nothing's going to be perfect, but once you start just creating some numbers to start looking at, it does make it a lot easier to start to tell stories about successes of different touch points and different channels once you have that baseline really created for yourself. And use your own data for that. I will have all my baselines, and then I'll kind of calculate a conversion rate, and then I look at what an industry standard is and kind of see if they relate. But ultimately, it's, am I moving my own needle on my own stuff at this point? So audience and benchmarking is the best thing I can give you to start with. Yep.
Such great advice. Thank you, Monica. So where can people find you or follow the work you're doing at CU Denver?
Yes, so you can visit our advancement website, of course. It's at ucdenver.edu/advancement. If you want to connect with me personally, I am on LinkedIn. My account is Monica-C-Cutler, so you can find me there. I'm very passionate about digital accessibility, hence the cognitive load perspective, which in my opinion is tied to digital accessibility, and I post a lot about that within LinkedIn. And then you're welcome to email me if you have more inquiries about things. It's monica.cutler@ucdenver.edu.
Great. Thank you so much. And
Thanks.
thank you to everyone for listening to Campus Outcomes. Great stories are happening all across higher ed, and we're here to shine a light. We'll see you next time.